Hello everyone, this is Shiny Noctowls and hope you all are doing well tonight. I figured be good to talk about this topic. I've been actually thinking about it for a wee while now, and I figured it would be finally good to actually talk about it because I think that it will really kind of help clear things up, as it were, for some people who might be confused about what a Celtic Heart is, at least is to me at the very least. Because I know a lot of people tend to be confused at times when I tell them that, because sometimes people will think, if he says he has a Celtic heart, it just means he's Irish, which is not really true. Uh, Having a Celtic heart is so much more than just that term, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because I feel like that, um, the time that I did, you know, have a life in the Isles, I feel that the concept of the term Irish, or really the term Celtic, really had a different term back then than it does now, at least for some people, at least. And I think a fair bit of the Irish, or not, or really the Celtic people from the Isles, Uh, I think they know deep down what it really means to be Celtic. Um, but I think there's been this confusion over time that has caused people to have a very different idea of what it means to be Celtic or to be Irish or maybe even Scottish or Welsh for some people or other Celtic tribes, really. So I wanted to share this image here, and I felt like this was a perfect image to really dispel the whole notion of Irish people or you know Irish deities just being of just a pale complexion or having solely blonde hair and red hair. Because although that is the shades of some of the deities, it's only one shade or only one spectrum. And I feel like in my past life, I probably, I believe I probably did have, I'd imagine potentially, but I I feel like I probably might have had, blonde hair, blue eyes, or potentially green eyes, but I don't know why blue's coming up. But I tell people, regardless if I had, blonde hair, blue eyes 700 years ago, or I have dark hair, dark eyes now, it doesn't really make a difference because for me, having a Celtic heart is really about who I am within. For me, having blonde hair and blue eyes in my previous form made no more difference to who I am in my heart as the dark hair or dark eyes I have now. And I think people really just misconstrue or misunderstand what it really means to be Celtic. Because being Celtic or having a Celtic heart has nothing to do really with this whole notion of white supremacy or neo-Nazi kind of movements, as it were. Being Celtic is so much more than that because for me, I feel like, just as the Irish gods and goddesses or Celtic gods and goddesses are equals in their own right, I feel like, that can also be applied to us as well in the sense that, whether I had, one hair color in a previous lifetime or another hair color the other lifetime, it doesn't mean one is better than the other. I view blonde hair, blue eyes the same as I do dark hair, brown eyes, or as far as being equals, so to say. I don't elevate one form of myself more than the other, because it's only a projection. It's a projection of color, but the source of that projection, the root is what really matters. Because because for example, I'll give you an example here. You can have a red potato, a blue potato, a green potato, a yellow potato, a brown potato, a gold potato, any number colored of potatoes. But deep down, they all are have that potato heart, as it were, if you want to call it that, regardless of them having different projections. And even though some people might prefer aesthetically, a blue potato over a green potato or a red potato over a brown potato, they all are still equal at the end of the day. And so I feel like that this thing about people really, because John O'Sullivan, he did and I think I mentioned him speaking about this. He spoke about how there were some people who were trying to use an image of Lou. Lou's actually here, by the way. Um, but they tried to use an image of him or a form of him that had blonde hair, blue eyes, and they try to say, "Oh, that's what we should model ourselves after." But the problem that these people, were the problem these people were kind of creating, and John kind of spoke about it. And there's nothing wrong with Lou having blue hair or not not blue. Well, it wouldn't matter if he had blue hair either. But it doesn't it doesn't matter if he has blonde hair and blue eyes versus if he had brown hair, dark eyes, or red hair, purple eyes. That's not really the point. The problem that was happening is that these people were essentially using this form of Lou as, oh, look at how he looks. Like we're gonna, uh, model how he looks, not even really who he is, mind you, just how he looks, as our model for our white supremacy, fortunately, which is really sad. Because the thing is, I think that different hair colors and different eye colors, whether it's blonde, dark hair, red hair, brown hair, or different eye colors, green, blue, brown, uh, gray, and as well as a myriad of other colors, are all beautiful in their own right. But I think people, excuse me, just trying to clear my throat as it were. Had some potato chips recently. Salt and vinegar, actually. So I think the problem here is that these people, they don't really have an understanding of the Celtic Heart in general. They just see what's on the outside, and again, you could have a blonde person that um, could connect with the Celtic Heart and Celtic culture, or you could have someone from the Middle East or from somewhere in Asia, because as I've researched, there are some blonde people even as far out as there, that could connect with a completely different culture. So I think the problem is people are trying to base a culture based on how you how a person looks or their hair color, eye color, rather than who they actually are. And I think that's the thing that John really tried to hone in. And so, I think while it is a problem here in America, in the U.S., you know, I know it's even a problem, in other countries like Canada and even unfortunately in Ireland to an extent. Um, Even though in the other isles and other lands, even though I don't feel like that's always been the case, um, or at least not to my knowledge. But But yeah, I think that when you look at the different Celtic gods, for example, like Dagda, and this is only one form of Dagda, by the way, because people have to remember the gods and goddesses can appear in many different forms. They could have blonde hair, they could have brown hair, they could have red hair, they could have dark hair, they could have green eyes, brown eyes, purple. I don't know why I said purple eyes, but they could potentially have purple eyes, gray eyes, uh, brown eyes, a myriad of different forms and different colors. And so I also want people to know that when they look at the Celtic gods and goddesses, that this is just one form that they're appearing in. It doesn't mean this is their only form. This is only just one projection of them, so to speak. Um, but even just looking at these different forms of all the Celtic gods, you can see there's a myriad of diversity here as far as blonde, dark, brown, red, as well as different eye colors as well. You may not see it very clearly here in these images, but you can at least see the different skin tones as well, where some are fairer in complexion while some are a bit darker. And I think that uh, people kind of miss the point when someone, you know, because for me, I don't really ever tell people, I'm Irish, or I've had some people say, from Scotland or with that connection, say, hey, we're connected. I don't tell people I'm Scottish, and I don't tell people because I've even had some connections with Wales too. I don't tell people I'm Welsh. I just tell people I have a Celtic heart. Or, I could also tell them I'm Celtic American, just because I was born in a foreign land this lifetime, because I feel like, there was a reason why I was born off of Eire, uh, you know, Eire, this lifetime, and I've already spoke about it in my videos, and so I probably don't need to to go about that once more. But yeah, no, I feel like that, I've still been able to keep that culture or that heart within me, the good parts of it, mind you, because while there has have been, moments of pain and sorrow that I unfortunately experienced in the Isles, just as everyone has in their own journey to some extent, I've learned to keep the good parts of it, and or the parts that are worth keeping and worth cherishing and worth healing and really looking up to, and or kind of sharing with others. And I think that what really matters is who you are, who you are in the heart. And so people need to understand, when they're looking at Dagda or Nuada or Bress or I'll have to relearn some of the pronunciations, excuse me, for those who are listening who are fluent in Irish. Lou, Ogma, Bio, Angus, Don. Uh, Probably need to practice or repractice. Luteon, uh, Gubion, and Crine. I guess broken Irish is better than than broken Irish is better than at least no Irish in that way, or broken Celtic is better than no Celtic. Um, but yeah, no. So I think people have to understand when they're connecting with these gods and goddesses, they're really connecting with a person and more importantly, a heart and a soul. And I think that you're not just talking to a blonde-haired person, you're not just talking to a dark-haired person, you're not just talking to a brown-haired or red-haired or blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes or gray eyes, you're not just talking to how a person looks, you're talking to who they actually are. And I think that people just have to understand that. It's really who you are that matters. Even Christians, it's interesting because unfortunately there are some Christians who are white supremacists, but even their leader Jesus, he was really uh, you know, born in the Middle East, and a lot of people over there have dark eyes, dark hair, and then typically a darker skin tone. So it's interesting how they only look at one form of him rather than all the other forms he's had, and really, misunderstand, you know, the person or the heart. Yeah, it's a shame, but it's gonna happen. But yeah, no, I think people tend to do that more often than not, at least nowadays. And things are changing slowly but surely, but there still needs to be a lot of healing, a lot of recognition there to really speak up about these things. And yeah, because it's really who you are that matters, and people I think have some people have forgotten about that. But it's our job, or at least my job, or well, I don't want to say just my job because I think there are many other people out there who like to speak up as well. But I and others would like to really bring this message home that there's always been diversity as far as appearances, whether people want to admit it or not. That that's always been the case. Um, but I think there's been a distortion of the certain values that I think that have to be untwisted, and a lot of it has already been becoming untwisted. But people have to understand, for example, this whole thing about Black Irish and the whole Spanish Armada nonsense. It really is nonsense because, for example, even look at Nuada and Angus, and many other different forms of all the other gods and goddesses. They've been in the Isles for thousands of years before any of this nonsense ever came about, even. So, and at the end of the day, it really is nonsense. These people, unfortunately, try to push their agenda to try to really push about an agenda of control, and that's what it is. It's a shame. It's a shame, but it's our job to untwist that, to untwist what isn't meant to be twisted in that way, and to really understand, the core roots of what it means to have a Celtic heart, or at least one aspect of it. And because I think a lot of people really misunderstand the culture and the heart and the soul and who someone is. They really they really misconstrue that at times. But yeah, so these are at least the Celtic gods. Now I'll go on to the Celtic goddesses because I feel like it's only fair to show them as well. And because there's an equal, or there should be an equal respect between the gods and goddesses, or feminine and masculine. I really do believe that. And so, and even when you look at the Irish goddesses, just like the Irish gods or the counterparts, there is, a lot of diversity or, differences in appearances here. And just like with the Irish gods, how they can have more than one form, so can the Irish goddesses. And I think that people have to understand that, yes, like the Celtic or the Celtic gods, some of them will have red hair or blonde hair, but that's not just all of them, and that's just one shade. Again, that's just one look or one projection. But you also have dark hair and brown hair and different hair colors as well, and different skin tones. And you know, the Celtic goddess that I feel like that I connect the most with, or at least see as my spiritual mother, is most likely the Morrigan, and her sisters, and people will have to understand that yes, the Morrigan and her sisters. When I mean sisters, I mean Bab and Maka, but of course, Bridget and Caradwin would also be kind of considered brethren in a way as well. Fortunately, Caradwin's not pictured here, and that's the thing too. I prefer to say Celtic rather than just simply Irish because yes, they are part of Eire, but the Isles are more connected than people sometimes like to project. Scotland and Wales and even parts of England, Cornwall, as well as other parts, Britannia, they really are more connected than people have tried to separate them. Yeah, separate them to be. Because there really is more overlap. There are more overlap than people would like to would it's tough. It's tough talking about this because um you know when you come from a time where people were more connected culturally and through the heart, it's tough because I mean now yes, there are there are Scottish, there are Welsh, and there are Irish, and we've all had our own experiences, but we all are really still connected, whether people want to admit it or not. We are, as well as the other, Celtic nations and other lands, really, overall. Um, but yeah, no, so, um, and again, one is not better than the other, regardless of the projection or the appearance. It's just a shade of color. It's a shade of a form, uh, and I think people have to understand that. Um, Because again, I go back to the red potato, green potato. We didn't even have potatoes back then, mind you. I'm just using that as an example to really tone this in. Back then it was just cabbage really. Yeah, no, potatoes weren't, at least to my knowledge, weren't introduced until the late 1500s, and I've heard that at the time the Irish thought that at that time they thought that the potatoes were poisonous, and then they eventually learned that they weren't. So, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think people really they just um misunderstand even what they're looking at. What they're looking at when they look at uh for example, the Celtic gods and goddesses, because it really is a soul there, a really an individual. Um, and these individuals can have many different forms, many different projections, many different ways of being. And people, I think, have really forgotten that even within themselves, because even we, or at least myself, you know, myself of blonde hair, blue eyes 700 years ago was just one projection of me, where the person I am now with dark hair and uh, dark eyes is just another projection. Or really just another form, And we have this form for a time, we do, and at least in the world we live in, we can't just necessarily change our physical forms willy-nilly. Like, well, we sort of can now, at least our hair color. If you want to buy dye and you want to dye your hair different hair colors, so there is that. But I guess I'm talking about more so in the spiritual realm, like, 'cause you can have, at least in my belief, different forms there, different forms of being, or um, if you want to project yourself with red hair, you can. If you want to project yourself with dark hair, you can. With blonde hair, you can. With brown hair, even blue hair, if you wanted to. You can even do that here. You just have to buy the right dye. But yeah, no, I think that people, it's really silly when I'm talking about this because, uh, you know, I think to a lot of the Celtic gods and goddesses or deities, this is common knowledge to them, and even to some of the people back then. But now, there's been a lot of things that have had to really be undistorted and really be to really come back to the roots of the heart and to remember the heart, and remember what really makes us who we are, because it's not just what you are, it's who you are. And I think who you are, it really is so much deeper than just what's on the surface. And I think a lot of people could agree with that to an extent. Even the people who may not readily agree with that, I believe even they deep down could see that as well. But anyways, I think this is good enough for now. Good enough. A good time to end the video. And let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, I'd like you all to be respectful and to share, somewhat educated or kind of constructive or helpful dialogue, as it were. Wouldn't want too many trolls, as it were. But anywho, hope you all take care. Hope you all have a good rest of the evening and or day or afternoon, whatever time you're watching this, and have a uh, good rest of the day. Slán.